Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Right on Crime podcast. Right on Crime is a national campaign of the Texas Public Policy Foundation that supports conservative solutions for reducing crime, restoring victims, reforming offenders, and lowering taxpayer costs. My name is Britt Allen, and I am really excited for today's guest. All the way from the beautiful state of Utah is our state director, Katie Stahl. Hey, Katie.
Hi, Britt. So nice to be here with you today.
I'm so glad you made it. Welcome to Texas. It's a little bit hotter here than it is in Utah, am I right?
Yeah, it's a dry heat, as we like to call it in Utah.
Right.
So you guys bring the Texas-sized humidity.
That we do, amongst other things. And I would also say that, I was in Utah last year with you, and it's a much more 3D state than Texas is. I love Texas, but it's a little bit flatter than Utah.
You're missing the Wasatch Mountains. It's true.
Oh my gosh, I miss so much about it. Well, I guess that means we have to come back and visit you then soon.
I would love it anytime.
Good. Well, thank you again for joining us. We're so excited. I know there's a lot that we want to get to and talk about, so let's dive right in. Katie, I want to know a little bit about your story because you have a really impressive professional background. Tell us how you got into criminal justice and how you made it to Right on Crime.
Okay, well, I think that starts with my initial career. I attended the University of Utah and did an internship for Senator Hatch, my home state senator, and ended up working on his Senate Judiciary Committee staff as an intern, and then was offered a position once I graduated with the committee. And that is where I met Brett Tolman, who was on the committee working as a detailee from the Department of Justice. He was a prosecutor in Utah. And so our lives went in different directions. I went on to lobby and then was a stay-at-home mom for a while. And Brett went on to be the U.S. attorney from Utah and then was at a big firm and started a practice. So when I moved back to Utah, I started working for the Tolman Group, for Brett's firm. And it was there where Brett's focus was really on the policy portion of the criminal justice reform more than taking individual cases, I guess. And so I just started working and helping him in that arena. And it's interesting because, as you are well aware, his thought was, as a conservative, I believe in more limited government, and that should include the criminal justice system. And that he wanted to see conservatives lead with good ideas. And sometimes that reform has historically been seen as something that people more on the left take on. And so I just remember getting phone calls from people, from talking to someone that my sister knew who had a son who played football for Brighton High School. I had a brother who played football for Brighton High School, and, he was injured and started with opiates like so many people do, and then that turned into addiction. And then fast forward, and her son, who comes from a wonderful family, is now in a terrible prison in California, far away from his family and without a lot of good options. And I think that there are better things we can do as a society to help reform individuals and when necessary, make them safe for reintegration. So it's been a really interesting and exciting journey. It's not one that I expected, to be quite honest, but the past few years have been a really exciting time.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is criminal justice something that you've always had an interest in, or did it just sort of develop as you kind of went through your background in your professional life?
Yeah, I think it really just developed. It's one of those things where, as we'll sometimes talk about, you don't care about the criminal justice system until it cares about you. And frankly, I never had major cause to really care about the criminal justice system. I'd seen injustices that I wasn't happy about, but looking at systematic changes that could be developed and worked through by bringing appropriate people to the table, that's been something that's really exciting to me.
Yeah, I have kind of a similar story in that way, in the sense of I've never really had a brush with the criminal justice system. But then once I got on this team and worked with you guys and then started experiencing those stories, then it lights a fire in you that you can't extinguish.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I really appreciate it. And we're just so lucky to have you on the team. You're such a powerhouse in the state of Utah. And I want to get into specifically your state. So, every state has, what they do really, really well. And, they have gaps and opportunities as well. So when it comes to the state of Utah, what do you feel like you guys do really well? Like, what are you really proud of when it comes to criminal justice in Utah?
I think what I'm proud about in Utah is we call it the Utah way, that there's a Utah way to do things. And in our increasingly chaotic and divisive political world, I think, we're starting to see a little bit more of that perhaps play out on the local level as well. But I'm proud to be a Utahn. I've always been proud of that. I'm proud of our legislators and of people really wanting to do the right thing. And I think that it's exciting to be part of that. I don't always agree. There are always different ways to do things and to go about things. And like you said, there are opportunities to do better, but I feel like there are a lot of thoughtful people in the leadership at the state level who are trying to do what's right around bail reform, around reducing recidivism. To me, that's such a huge, important task that needs a lot of big brains in the room. And I'm excited that that's what's starting to happen in Utah, is that it's not just seen as a Bureau of Prisons issue over here, but that it really takes a community to come around, and it's a community issue that needs a community solution. And so I'm thankful for the conversations that have been had and that are continuing.
Right, 100%. And I can attest that Utah really does have strong communities and kind and thoughtful people. So the thought that those are your leadership there, like, that's fantastic. So on the flip side, because there's always a flip side, right, where do you feel like some of the gaps and opportunities lie in the state of Utah?
Well, Utah has a 62%, the last statistic I saw was a 62% recidivism rate. That's a really big opportunity for improvement. So I think we need to be, as you know, Right on Crime is all about looking at data and coming up with data-driven solutions of taking the emotion out of the conversation and seeing what's going to work here. And so if only 20% of people going into prison are for new crimes and the others are returning, there needs to be a much more holistic approach. I read an article, and I don't know who to quote for this. It's not my idea, but when we talk about when someone goes into a hospital, you don't wait until the person's ready to leave to figure out what's wrong with them or what the care plan is for afterwards. And I think as we start to look at the criminal justice system and looking at individuals and needs, and not to be confused with, the hug-a-thug that everyone, that is so popular out there right now. Like, there need to be real punishments for real crimes that are committed. But I think an understanding of individuals and how we can improve outcomes in that space ultimately makes our community safer.
I love the way that you just compared it to a hospital, because I don't think very many people would consider like the outcome portion of this. We think about crime and punishment, and that is important, but what is the point if they're just going to come out, reoffend, and then go right back? So I think it's really important for people to see that parallel. And then piggybacking off of that, off of this idea of recidivism and reentry, we had a reentry forum in Salt Lake City last year.
Yes.
For anybody that maybe isn't familiar with, what we do in that way, can you tell people about what we did, why it was important, and what the hope is for events like that?
Sure, absolutely. It was a great event that we hosted, downtown at Little America. We had Burgess Owens there. We had law enforcement there. We had, Brian Redd, from the new head of DOC, joined us. And so many wonderful people in that room to talk about, again, how do we solve this? And the number one predictor, Britt, or one of the most important things we can do is when people have hope coming out of the system and hope to make a life that's different than what got them into prison, is where you start to see the change. And so in having not just a job, but stable employment where you can move beyond being a dishwasher, where you can move beyond positions that have been folks coming out who've been incarcerated have been more pigeonholed into. And so I think when you start to have those conversations, a wonderful, brave friend of mine, Mickey, who came out and shared her story of, some bad decisions that landed her in a place, but how she was able to work through that and now be a powerful advocate for those without those same opportunities.
Yeah, that's amazing. I had the best time at the reentry forum we had in Utah, and we really saw some amazing employers come out and were really engaged with the content. And those are the people that are really going to help make a difference in your state and hopefully help to lower recidivism. So, Katie, I could talk to you all day. You're such a wealth of knowledge. You're so great at your job, and we're so thankful that you're on our team. If anybody wants to keep up with you and your work in Utah, where can they find you?
Well, thanks, Britt. I have a Twitter account. I know that our social team wishes I would be a bit better on, but the tag on that is at Katie Stahl, ROC. So
awesome. Well, we appreciate you joining us. And thank you, everybody, for joining us again for the Right on Crime podcast. To find out more about these issues, you can visit our website at rightoncrime.com. Until then, talk to you next time.